Ever feel like you're just drowning in information? Articles, emails, news feeds. It's constant.
Oh, absolutely. Like trying to drink from a fire hose.
Exactly. And what we really want, I think, is learning that actually sticks, knowledge you can genuinely use.
That's the real challenge, isn't it? It's not about access anymore. It's about making it meaningful,
Mm.
making it change how we do things, learning with impact.
Right. And that's precisely why we're doing this deep dive today into Julie Dirksen's Design for How People Learn. We've gathered, well, all sorts of material for you.
Yeah, excerpts, summaries, some critical takes, Q&As, the works.
Think of it as your guide to the core ideas on designing learning that works, starting with yourself even.
And our mission really is to pull out those key principles, the stuff you can immediately grasp and use. Doesn't matter what your background is.
We're going beyond just knowing stuff. We want to focus on application, retention, making it actually useful for you.
Exactly. Theory is great, but action is better.
Okay, so let's dive in. Chapter 1, where do we start? First off, Dirksen kind of pushes back on this idea of learning as just filling up an empty bucket.
Right. She frames it as a journey. You've got a destination success, whatever that looks like, but you have to know the starting point. And crucially, what's in the way, the gaps,
And these gaps, they're not just, I don't know this, it's broader.
much broader. She outlined 6 types. There's the obvious one, the knowledge gap, but then skill knowing about something versus being able to do it. That's a big one.
Huh.
Then motivation, why you might not act even if you know better.
Yeah.
Habit those ingrained patterns, environment like the tools or surroundings, and communication gaps where wires get crossed.
She uses these great examples like someone knowing smoking is bad, knowledge gap filled, but still doing it. That's motivation, right?
Or a manager knowing leadership theory, but struggling to actually apply it with their team. That's a skill gap.
Yeah, it really makes you stop and think. Just throwing more information at a problem, it's often not the answer.
Definitely not. The insight is understanding why someone isn't succeeding, not just what they don't know. It shifts your whole approach.
Is it information they lack? Or is something else blocking them?
Exactly.
And I found her point about unlearning interesting. She calls it a special kind of motivation gap.
Yeah, sometimes breaking old habits, old ways of thinking. That's the real work before new learning can even happen. It requires a different kind of effort.
It really does. And it shows why just assuming everything's a knowledge gap is, well, it's often wrong.
Totally. Someone might know what to do, but if their computer system is impossible to use, that's an environment gap.
Or the instructions are just gibberish, a communication gap.
And performance suffers either way.
So chapter 1's big takeaway, ask better questions first. Really dig into what the actual barrier is before jumping to solutions.
Precisely. It gives you a much sharper toolkit for designing learning, whether it's for yourself or for a whole team, much more targeted.
Okay, moving on. Chapter 2. Who are your learners? Seems basic, know your audience, but Dirksen digs deeper.
Way deeper than just demographics. It's about understanding motivations, preferences, existing skills, what makes people tick, essentially.
Especially for your own learning, right? Understanding what drives you, how you like to learn, what you already bring to the table.
Absolutely critical.
Yep.
And if you're designing for others, ignoring that stuff is just, well, it's setting yourself up for failure.
She talks about intrinsic motivation learning because you want to, for satisfaction or solving a problem you care about.
Versus extrinsic learning for a reward, like a grade or a promotion.
And most of us are probably a mix, depending on the situation.
For sure. And she outlines these interesting learner types or maybe mindsets. You've got the just tell me what I need to know person, straight to the point.
Yeah, the efficient one.
Then the explorer, the hey, this is cool person, driven by curiosity. The problem solver, focused on a specific fix.
And then there's the this is required learner, maybe less enthusiastic initially.
Right. And even those who might be resistant, the I fear change type, knowing these helps you tailor how you present things. One core message, but maybe different angles.
I can definitely see myself in a couple of those, depending on the topic. It shows how your own motivation isn't fixed.
Exactly. And knowing that helps you choose how to learn. If you're curious, maybe you browse widely. If you need to solve something now, you look for practical, targeted help.
She also stresses knowing your current skill level. Makes sense. Beginners need more hand-holding, more structure.
Yeah, scaffolding, he calls it. Whereas experts often thrive with more freedom, more autonomy.
It's about meeting people where they are. So how do you figure this out, for yourself or others?
Well, she suggests practical things. Reflection, just thinking about your own process. Asking for feedback. trying different approaches to see what resonates. Experimenting, really.
Okay, chapter 3. What's the goal? Seems obvious you need a goal, but she makes it sound really fundamental.
It absolutely is. Clear goals are the roadmap. They guide everything else. Without them, how do you know what steps to take, or even which gaps matter most?
It's not just, I want to learn about X. It needs to be more defined.
Much more. She suggests a process. First, what's the problem you're actually trying to solve? Even if it's personal growth, what does growth look like?
Then define a clear outcome, something observable. What will you be able to do differently?
Right. Then you look at the gaps again, in light of that goal, and decide the scope, how much is enough.
I liked her question. What bad thing will happen if I don't know this?
Yeah, that's a great filter. It helps you prioritize, cuts through the nice to know and gets to the need to know.
She brings in Bloom's taxonomy here, too. That's about the level of understanding you're aiming for.
Exactly. Is it just remembering facts? Or you need to analyze, evaluate, maybe even create something new based on what you've learned. It affects how you approach the learning.
And she differentiates fast skills versus slow skills.
Yeah, fast skills often have clear rules, maybe like following a checklist. You can learn them relatively quickly with practice.
Okay.
Slow skills are more complex, nuanced. They require ongoing experience, judgment calls, think leadership, or complex problem solving.
And that changes how you design the learning.
Big time. Fast skills might just need clear instructions and repetition. Slow skills need richer experiences, reflection, probably feedback over time.
Got it. Which leads nicely into chapter 4. How do we remember? Because learning is pointless if it goes in one ear and out the other.
Precisely.
Oh.
Memory is the bedrock. Dirksen talks about two key processes: encoding, getting information in,
Right.
and retrieval, getting it back out when you need it. Both have to work.
She covers the different memory types, sensory, short-term, or working memory,
Yeah.
and long-term.
And that bit about working memory's limit, the famous 7 plus or minus 2 items,
Yeah.
it really drives home why you need to break complex information down, chunking it. You can't just fire hose people.
So what helps things stick? Go from working memory to long-term memory.
Several factors. Significance, does it matter to the learner? Uniqueness, does it stand out? Familiarity, can you connect it to something you already know?
Makes sense. Repetition helps keep things active in working memory.
But for long-term storage, just repeating isn't enough. You need varied practice, deeper processing, connecting it to existing knowledge.
So, practical tips for us. Don't just reread notes passively.
Right. Explain it to someone else. Quiz yourself. Try to link it to real-life examples. Break it down. Make it meaningful to you.
And context matters too, right? Learning something in a similar environment to where you'll use it.
Yes, that can definitely aid retrieval. Making those meaningful associations, embedding it in a useful context, that's key for encoding and recall.
Okay, chapter 5, big challenge. How do you get their attention, especially now with distractions everywhere?
It's a constant battle. Dirksen uses that great metaphor from Jonathan Haidt, the elephant on the rider.
The elephant is the emotional, automatic brain, and the rider is the rational, conscious part.
Exactly. And her point is, to get attention and keep it, you need to appeal to the elephant. The rider might know something is important, but the elephant gets easily distracted or bored.
So how do you engage the elephant?
She offers several strategies. Stories are huge. They tap into existing mental frameworks, create emotion,
Okay.
creating
Yep.
urgency. What does this matter now? Sparking curiosity, posing intriguing questions, creating a mystery.
And social engagement. Learning with others.
Yeah, that can be very powerful for attention too. Plus visuals, hands-on activities,
Yeah.
anything that makes it more concrete and less abstract.
And she warns about relying too much on external rewards, right? Like prizes or points.
She does. They can sometimes backfire and kill intrinsic motivation. The best rewards are often internal, that feeling of aha, of mastering something, of solving a problem. That's what truly engages the elephant long term.
Makes sense. Okay, chapter 6, design for knowledge. This is about structuring things so knowledge actually gets transferred and retained.
Right. A key idea here is helping learners build mental shelves, connecting new information to what they already know.
Like creating hooks for the new stuff to hang on.
Exactly. So activating prior knowledge before introducing new concepts is really important. It prepares the shelves, so to speak.
And she talks about metacognition again. Thinking about your own thinking.
Yes. Encouraging learners, including yourself, to pause and reflect. Do I really get this? How does this connect to what I already know? What questions do I still have? That self-awareness boosts understanding significantly.
It's about actively managing your own learning process.
Precisely. And she talks about making it sticky, creating significance, making it relevant, and using desirable difficulties.
Wait, difficulties that are desirable sounds odd.
It does, but the idea is that struggling a bit, putting in some cognitive effort, actually makes the learning stronger and more durable than if it's presented too easily. Think active recall versus just rereading.
Ah, okay. So challenge is good, within reason.
Exactly. And it ties into her emphasis on show, don't tell. Active engagement, practice, application that beats passive reception almost every time for knowledge retention.
Which leads us straight into Chapter 7, Design for Skills. Because knowing isn't the same as doing. Practice is key.
Absolutely essential. Information alone doesn't build skill. Dirksen uses this analogy of riding a bike uphill.
Okay.
It takes effort, sustained effort. You need practice to build strength and stamina to avoid burnout. You can't just read about cycling and expect to climb a mountain.
So practice needs structure.
Yes. Alternating challenge and rest, she suggests. Push yourself, then allow time for consolidation and reflection. That enhances skill development.
And she mentions flow state here, too.
Right, that sweet spot where the challenge level perfectly matches your current ability. You're fully engaged, time flies. That's peak learning territory for skills.
What else is important for skill building?
Spaced practice is huge. Shorter practice sessions spread out over time beat cramming every single time for long-term skill retention.
Good reminder. We all know cramming doesn't really work long-term.
And feedback. Frequent, specific, timely feedback is crucial. It helps you see where you're going wrong and reinforces what you're doing right.
And the ultimate goal.
Applying the skill in the real world. That's the true test.
Right. Now, Chapter 8 circles back to design for motivation, but focuses on bridging that gap between knowing and doing.
Yeah, the no-do gap. We know we should exercise, eat well, practice that new skill. But actually doing it is another story.
Why is that so hard sometimes?
Dirksen points out that immediate experience often trumps abstract knowledge. The comfort of the old habit right now feels more compelling than the future benefit of the new behavior. It's that elephant again, preferring the familiar path.
Changing habits is tough.
It really is. She brings in some models to help understand how to nudge behavior, like the idea that people adopt new things if they see them as genuinely useful and relatively easy to do.
Like a well-designed app versus a clunky one?
Exactly. Perceived usefulness and perceived ease of use. Also, factors like relative advantage. Is this clearly better than the old way? And observability. Can I see others succeeding with this?
Ah, social proof. Seeing others do it makes it seem more achievable.
Definitely. And building self-efficacy, that belief in your own ability to do it, practice, small wins, encouragement, seeing peers succeed, they all build that confidence, which fuels motivation.
So it's not just about willpower.
Not at all. It's about designing the situation to support the desired action. But it's a process, she emphasizes. It needs ongoing support and reinforcement.
Chapter 9 gets specific. Design for habits, making those desired behaviors automatic.
Because automaticity is powerful. When something becomes a habit, it frees up your mental energy. You just do it without draining your willpower.
So how do habits form? What are the components?
Dirksen breaks it down. There's the behavior pattern itself, obviously. Then the trigger, the cue, the if-then situation that kicks it off. The motivation, the underlying desire, the feedback. Does it feel good? Does it work? Practice and repetition, essential for wiring it in. And the environment, does it support or hinder the habit?
So how can we intentionally build good habits?
She offers concrete strategies. Hack your environment, make the good habit easier and the bad habit harder. Shrink the habit, start ridiculously small so it feels easy to do.
Like meditating for 1 minute instead of aiming for 30 right away.
Exactly. Build momentum. And chain new habits onto existing ones, like flossing right after brushing your teeth. Use the established routine as a trigger.
And she mentions implementation intentions.
Yeah, those if-then plans. If situation X happens, then I will do Y. Planning your response in advance makes you much more likely to follow through when the trigger occurs.
And again, practice and feedback are crucial to lock it in.
Always. Habits are built through consistent repetition with reinforcement.
Okay, Chapter 10 looks beyond formal learning, social and informal learning, acknowledging that we learn a ton outside of classrooms or courses.
A huge amount. Probably the majority, for many things. Learning from colleagues, working on projects together, finding resources online, just figuring things out on the job.
It's not always a neat, linear process.
Not at all. It's messy, ongoing, a blend of formal instruction, informal discovery, and social interaction. She's an example, I think, of someone learning project budgeting.
Right, hero learning to budget.
Yeah, he might take a workshop, formal, but he also learns by asking his manager questions, informal coaching, and looking at how past projects were budgeted, social resources. It's all mixed together.
So we need to value and support that informal side, too.
Definitely. Building learning communities, helping people get better at finding and filtering information curation skills, and encouraging personal learning networks, BLNs. It's all part of continuous growth in today's world.
Chapter 11, Design for Environment. This comes back to the idea that sometimes the problem isn't the learner, it's the context.
Precisely. Those environment gaps. The system is too complex, the needed information isn't available, the tools are clunky. Even if you have the knowledge and skill, the environment holds you back.
She mentions Donald Norman's idea here.
Yeah, knowledge in the head and in the world. The powerful idea that we can embed knowledge into the environment itself to reduce the load on our memory.
How does that work in practice?
Putting resources where people need them, like checklists or decision aids, right next to the task. Using prompts and triggers as reminders. Building knowledge into tools so the tool guides the correct process.
Like wizards in software.
Kind of, yeah. Or making critical information readily visible. She also talks about supply caching, delivering complex info just in time, rather than overwhelming people up front. And sometimes the best thing is just simplifying the process itself. Remove unnecessary steps.
So it broadens the scope of learning design quite a bit.
Hugely. It forces you to ask, beyond training, what else can we change in the environment to help people succeed? It's a powerful question.
Okay, last chapter, chapter 12, Designing Evaluation. Moving beyond the standard multiple choice test.
Yes, because those often just measure how good someone is at taking tests, not necessarily if they learned or can apply anything.
So what should evaluation focus on?
Dirksen argues it should look at three things. Does the learning design itself actually work? Did people actually learn what was intended? And crucially, are they applying it in the real world?
How do you measure that?
Observation is key. Watch actual learners interacting with the materials or trying to perform the task. Where do they get stuck? What works well? Get feedback early and often, not just at the end with a survey.
She also distinguishes between recognition, picking the right answer from a list, and recall, retrieving it from memory without cues. Recall is harder, often a better test of deeper learning.
Right, and using things like rubrics or checklists can provide more specific, consistent feedback on performance, especially for skills.
But the ultimate test
Is whether the learning makes a difference back on the job or in life.
Hmm.
Is it being used? Is it achieving the intended outcome? That's the real measure of success.
Wow. Okay, so wrapping this all up, this deep dive into design for how people learn really shows that effective learning isn't just about content.
Not at all. It's a whole system. You need to understand the learner, their goals, their gaps. You need to think about attention, memory, motivation. You need to design for knowledge, skills, and habits. And you need to consider the environment and evaluate what actually works.
It really gives you, the listener, a framework for thinking about your own learning, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Think about learning experiences you've had, good or bad. Can you use Dirksen's ideas, like the different gaps, to analyze why they worked or didn't work?
Yeah. So here's a final thought for you to take away. Based on everything we've discussed, with just one principle, one idea, you could try applying right now.
Could be to your own learning, or maybe how you help someone else learn something. What small experiment could you run this week?
Just pick one thing. Maybe it's defining a clearer goal, or chunking information differently, or thinking about an environmental support.
It's about making these powerful ideas practical in your world.
Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We really hope it sparked some useful insights for you.